Ladies and gentlemen, Keishla Lagoa.
Wrath is the feeling that transpires. It runs through my veins like a fire within cold wires. I'm just tired of a world ran by liar after liar. The matters are dire, but we are so blind to see because our minds have been rewired. Pre-programmed for a plan we never conspired. We dress in an attire that was programmed for us to admire. We look in the mirror and notice a soldier ready for a war against the sublime. Those blind are the ones falling victims to the crime, to the systems that bind one like a contract. We become nothing but slaves that have to pay, find, and confine, something like lab rats. Chasing after the cheese, injected with disease, controlled by the prestige. We have no say, we have no means, but if we got that green, man, if we got that green, we are made to believe in dreams that we are not supreme, when in reality, dreams become darkness. And when the value of the green in our pockets just become worthless, that's when all will be left wordless. With a lisp of uncertain and discerning scrutiny, now we think to commit mutiny against ourselves, bound by the power of wealth. A pre-designed outline to make one hate thyself.
Hi, I'm Gilberto Gonzalez. Welcome to Entre, Nosotros on CCPTV, the educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. My guest today is Ana Montenez, founder of Occupy El Barrio. Ana, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about growing up in Philly.
Well, I grew up in North Philadelphia. I grew up on Lawrence in Indiana. My parents are from Puerto Rico. My mother's from Jauco. My father's from Santurce. My parents have been here since the late 50s. I'm the youngest of 5. I grew up in El Barrio, basically.
And what was that like? What was it like growing up in North Philly?
It was interesting. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so a lot of drugs, a lot of street wars. But my parents kept me away from all that type of stuff. I stayed inside, or I went and participated in events and stuff like that. They kept me out of what was going on in our surroundings.
So now, is that what sparked your activism, your desire to be active in the community?
Well, even as a child, I was always very outspoken, and at work, I was always very outspoken. So if something happened to someone else, I was always the lawyer, they'd call me, because I'd be the one who'd always be like, no, that's not right. You know, you have to step up and say something. Right. So I've always had that inside of me since I was a kid. But in 2006, actually 2005, I heard of the Latino Partnership, which is a leadership organization.
Latino Partnership Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I took part of the class because at the moment I wasn't living in the neighborhood anymore. I was living out in Winfield, and I felt disconnected from my neighborhood because all I did was work. At the time I was working in catering, so most of my time was spent at work, and I didn't get to socialize within people in my community. My roommate knew about the Latino Partnership Institute, so I signed up for it because I wanted to know more about the nonprofits in the community, and I wanted to know how I can service our community by networking with these people.
So what exactly is the Latino Partnership Institute? Like, what's it a part of? Is it an independent agency? And also, like, who are some of the people that
Well, Angel Medina is the founder of the institute. It's part of the Philadelphia Prevention Partnership Association. So basically it's a leadership program. So after you do your leadership program, majority of the class was Puerto Rican. So we went to Puerto Rico to kind of learn the politics and what was going on the island, which was also awakening to me because being Puerto Rican born in the States and being first generation, I knew who I was, or so I thought, until I took that trip to Puerto Rico with the class. And then it all kind of started to make sense on why we do certain things a certain way and, you know, why we're so passionate about certain things.
What were some of the experiences here? How long is the program?
Well, it's changed. Before it used to be think it was a 7-month program.
And just, you said you had the programs here in Philadelphia, but then you went to Puerto Rico. So what were some of the experiences here in Philadelphia?
What do you mean?
Like experience, like what projects did you do? Like what was the class like?
Right. Well, what we did, our class was we fundraised for our trip to Puerto Rico, but through the fundraising, we networked with different people, like different nonprofits, and getting to know what it was that they were doing. So that's kind of
like they were doing in reference to
the community.
Like, give me an example, like Congreso.
Like Aspira, the impact that Aspira has in our community, how it started, things of that nature.
So you learned the history of Aspira?
The history and actually being that, because at the time the partnership did not have their own building, so Aspira would let us have classes there. So we used to go there and do our classes.
And then when you went to Puerto Rico, what was that experience like?
It was like learning who you were, really. For example, when we took the trip to Puerto Rico, 2 people have to become the leaders of the day. So every day we would go to a different town in Puerto Rico, and whoever was the leader of the day had to inform everyone of what it was that the town was known for, or whatever political things were going on. I was fortunate enough to have Vieques as my day, and I knew nothing about Vieques. I knew of the bombings because of what I heard on TV, but I didn't know how deep the impact was on the community there until we took the trip to Vieques.
Right, so tell me a little bit about Vieques. What is Vieques?
Vieques is part of Puerto Rico. It's a little island next to it. It's called La Isla Nena. Vieques was used by the United States Navy as a testing site. So they moved out a lot of the people that lived on the island, and they kept a very small percentage of islanders, original people from the island there. But unfortunately, with all the bombings and everything that was going on, most of these people are now sick and have cancer. Now, this is the type of stuff that I wasn't aware of. So for me, growing up in the hood, you know, things didn't matter anymore like they did before when I took this trip. Because when I took this trip, I said, you know, we're worried about nothing, you know, major. It's major to us, but it's not really major. When these people here in Vieques, you know, there's no hospital. There's no treatment centers for them. They have to go to the main island. So it made me appreciate the struggles that are going on in Puerto Rico that I was unaware of.
So compared Puerto Rico struggles to, like you said, you know, nothing here. What kind of struggles at that time?
Well, one of the things that bothered me about Vieques was that here this island was being used for bomb testing, and it was used by the Navy, but the people who live there are considered American, but they don't have the right to vote for president. And that was mind-boggling to me because I didn't know that. You know, I was like, wow, you know, you can abuse these people, but you can't, they don't have the right to say or voice their opinion to the right government. So it's almost kind of like what you don't, you know, you don't know these things, so you just feel so like.
So like, give me a comparison to something here. Like what would be, because you said that, you know, compared to us here, we don't worry about any, you know.
Well,
like,
it's stupid stuff. Like when I meant we don't worry, but I mean like our biggest concerns in the neighborhood is what's your, you know, what kind of car you drive, or materialistic things. And when I went to Puerto Rico, it was just so mind-blowing how we've evolved into these monsters, if you will, of, you know, wanting to look a certain way and dress a certain way, even though you don't really have much.
So there's a huge difference in culture then, right?
Yes.
There's a culture, there's the because I remember myself growing up as a kid, the culture was one of caringness, togetherness. Really, there wasn't, money was needed, but it wasn't like everybody wanted to have a BMW.
Right.
So your experiences was that here was one of, people want BMWs.
Right. And our mentality here is just so fast. We want everything fast. Everything's excessive. As to over there, it's just a whole different way of life.
After your experience in Puerto Rico, when you came back to the United States, what kind of work did you begin to do in the community?
Well, when I came back to the States, I felt like I needed to educate others and let them know what was going on in Puerto Rico. The LPI had an alumni board at the time, and I joined the board because being part of the LPI alumni, we were supposed to do 5 years of community service. So I figured if I join the alumni board, we can start something, do and make some type of impact in the community. Things didn't turn out the way I had hoped for, but it's a learning experience. After that, I got involved with one of the neighborhood baseball fields who has a program. I was there for about one summer, and I realized there was a problem. There was no communication between the people who were actually doing the program and the people who were in charge of the program. So it's kind of where I can say really that's when my activism started, was when I started saying, well, something has to get done because this is for our community, you know? And so me and a few of the parents went and we spoke to the CEO of the program, and he told us there wasn't enough funding. So again, when I took the leadership class, we were told to hold our, city people, our council people, our government, hold them accountable, So when they told me, there's no funding, I went to our councilwoman and I said, listen, this is what's going on. The kids in our neighborhood need this. It's been a part of our community as long as I know, And so I went to her, I went to Angel Medina, and we got the money they needed. But the problem was there's other hidden agendas within that, which has been a 3-year process. We had the money on the table, they refused to take the money. Now it's been a 3-year process of battling. They refused to take the money to... They claimed they were in a hole for 50 grand. We got the 50 grand. The CEO sent one of the parents who was never at the field and said, oh, they don't need it. So that's kind of when my rage, as far as like, well, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting until, we do something. We would have meetings and we'd have rooms full of parents and stuff like that, but people were so angry that the kids weren't going to have a season again, that there wasn't enough money, even though people knew that the money was offered. So that was...
So wow, that must have been kind of like an epiphany, like, wow.
Yeah.
Politics of a community agency, or just simply having baseball for the kids.
Right.
Wow. So now you're active in the community, and give me like I know one of the things that inspired you was the Occupy Wall Street.
Yes.
And that led you to where we are today. But tell me what inspired you about that.
Well, the whole Occupy Wall Street movement, I was working downtown at the time, and we also, when Occupy Wall Street started, then all the different Occupies in different cities started. Occupy Philly was big. And I would drive by there every day, but I didn't understand what it was that these people were protesting, because there was no direction. You didn't see like a direction of what it was that was going on. Once I started educating myself on, okay, well, what is the 99%? What's the 1%? What it is that they're talking about? My boyfriend, Sidney Crespo, he also has a friend who was at Occupy Wall Street, and he was like, these are issues that have been going on in our communities for a long time, but now that it's affecting everyone, now everyone's stepping up and talking about it. So when that happened, they started Occupy the Hood. Sid came to me and told me, listen, this is what's going on. So-and-so is doing Occupy the Hood. We should do something like this in North Philly. So me automatically, with the whole baseball thing that was going on, and just seeing other things that were going on in the neighborhood that I felt weren't talked about or weren't taken care of correctly, I said, well, okay, let's start Occupy El Barrio, and let's get the people in the community to be the voice of the people in the community. Because growing up, you always had people saying, oh, well, they need to do something. And I mean, I was guilty of that myself because I just repeated what I'd hear. But they is us. So if we don't do something for ourselves, no one's going to do something. So that's kind of the mentality of why we started Occupy El Barrio, was to educate, empower, and inspire the community on, you know, how to, when I say educate on like what's going on Wall Street, how is it affecting you, you know, financially, how it's affecting the mom and pop store around the corner. You know what I mean? Things like that, because again, in our community, and I can say in North Philly, because that's where I'm from, a lot of times people get distracted by other things that aren't important. So.
Right. And right now we're just going to show a clip of Occupy El Barrio doing community service on, and I forget the clip, the location of the clip is, you guys were up in Torresdale area?
Is the cleaning?
Yeah, it's the cleaning.
Yeah, we were cleaning the lighthouse, the outside of the lighthouse field.
Okay, so here's a clip.
Occupy El Barrio is a grassroots movement comprised of community members that empower, educate, and inspire El Barrio to achieve a higher quality of life. Basically, we're the 99%, which is ruled by the 1% for now. There was a movement that started on September 17th, the whole Occupy movement, Occupy Wall Street. And there was a lot of white people that were protesting in this movement, and our voices, Latinos, wasn't being heard. Then the Occupy the Hood started, and which gave a voice to blacks and browns in the Occupy movement. Since then, we branched out to our Latino communities, and that's where Occupy El Barrio came from. Really, they're feeling what we've been going through for like 60 years now. You know what I mean? The white communities are getting upset because they're feeling what we've been feeling, us at the bottom of the 99%. And we are just waking up the community. And a lot of people are asleep and they're brainwashed through power of entrainment because they're sitting in front of their television all the time. So it's time to wake up and get out of that seat and making a difference in your neighborhood. So right now, we're just cleaning the streets, but later on, we're gonna be cleaning the mind. How are we gonna recruit people? We're going block by block, street by street. We're gonna be in your neighborhood soon. You'll see us. Come along, join the movement, make a change in your neighborhood. Because if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, it's never gonna happen. You want change, it starts within you. So what are you gonna do to change your barrio, our barrio?
Ana, could you tell us a little bit about this whole cleaning, this whole movement that day?
The idea was we had conversations with the people at Lighthouse about how dirty it looked on the outside of the field. Again, there was no money for the cleaning of the outside of the field. Now, this is a place where the kids from our community use. So I decided, and a few of us from Occupy El Barrio, well, we're gonna clean it. We reached out, we put it out on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, and we reached out to everyone, you know, in the community and said, listen, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna clean. You're more than welcome to come out. So what we had was Enid Colon from the Philadelphia Latino pageants. She sent about 30 kids to come out there and help us clean. And it was a great event. I mean, it was on my birthday, it was raining, and these kids stayed out there and they cleaned until every piece of trash was gone. So it was great.
Now, with any movement, right, with any kind of like initiative in the community, there's always like ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Right, so like, give me a little bit about what that learning process has been like. Give me some ups, give me some downs.
Organizing is difficult. I'm learning as I'm going along. The ups is when you have people who at times might be on the same note that you're on as far as like what you're trying to achieve. But then you have but then at times you also have those folks that want to hit you up with well, we can't do this. Well, what if this? So that's kind of been like a struggle. As far as that part, that's always been the struggle with me, because I'm like, well, no, this is how we're going to do it. You know what I mean?
So when they say, no, we can't.
I say, yes, we can.
Cool.
So.
Very cool. And so like that's the up now. Some of the downs are?
Some of the downs is losing people in the process of what's going on. Sometimes you have people who have these huge egos, you know, and I don't want to be that person. I never want to say Occupy El Barrio, it's about me. Occupy El Barrio is everyone. It's the community. So that's kind of sometimes the down, is when sometimes people take that ego and they just want to be like, well, I did this and that's kind of where, as far as organizing, I've come to crashing with people, because I'm just like, we're not seeing things the right way. But again, this is a learning process, so I think that the longer I continue to battle in the community with whatever's going on, I think I'll be able to learn how to process that with people.
Well, I acknowledge your amazing work in the community.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it. So in saying that, when someone comes up to you like that, says, that's impossible, it ain't gonna happen, and then you're like, it is gonna happen. At the end, like, how does it feel to just take charge like that?
It's scary at times, because you want to prove to people that it can be done, and it's just scary because you're like, all right, so what's going to happen? Is it really going to happen? You know, you sometimes you kind of underguess yourself as well. But for the most part, I mean, it's a matter of getting people together.
Right, it's a learning process.
Right.
And I know you were involved in the Ada Guzman movement, which I think I don't know if the name is going to change.
Yeah, it is.
But give me a little bit about that experience. Give me a little bit of history of that, and what was your role with that whole movement?
Well, when I heard about the whole case, I actually heard about it through another activist who's from New York, and by this point, the clip was ready on YouTube.
So wait a minute, you're from Philly.
I had my daughter that weekend.
You heard it from someone in
else.
New York.
Yes.
So wow, so it did go viral.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
That weekend I had my daughter. So I was released from the hospital that Sunday when it happened. I live in the heart of the El Barrio, where the the Puerto Rican festival after party goes on. So I wasn't able to go home that day because there was no way of, traffic is so jammed up, so I had to go to my cousin's house. So I had no idea what was going on.
So for viewers who aren't familiar with the Puerto Rican Day Parade, after the parade, what tends to happen is people go back to the neighborhood, but really people from all over the area go to North Philadelphia, to the different bars, and just cruise the streets. Just explain to me what happens that day a little bit.
It gets a little crazy. That's another thing, that I like to be a part of the change. But the problem is, like you said, people come from all over, but then also people don't go to the parade and go to the after party, which they think is the parade.
So what happens there? Like what?
A lot of partying. Some people get excessive. People get drunk out there. People drive around. They drive in their cars. They're yelling and screaming. But also, that's more of the negative part of what goes on. Right. The positive part is we do have a festival on American Street. There's always different, they'll have like a special group or a special singer come out, and it's a day where we can celebrate our heritage.
Wow. And so then it got tarnished with this
whole incident with Ida.
And it's for viewers that don't know what exactly happened.
Well, Ida, apparently the street was it was closed off, but there was a car and the cops were going after the vehicle because they was making too much noise or whatever was going on. Ida just happens to be behind the officer. Someone was throwing water or a string or whatever they say, because I really don't know what people claim that was thrown. The lieutenant, Josie, turns around and punches Ida in the face.
Wow. That was excessive.
Yes.
Wow. And so as part of the movement, what was your role with the whole movement?
So I heard about the protest at City Hall through other activists, and then that's how I met Rosaura Torres. And I went up to Rosada. I recognized her from a documentary that I saw. And I told her, I want to be a part of this. How can I help you?
Wow. Well, that's really brave, because most people, when they see that kind of activism, or they see that kind of action, it's like scary. So that's great. So you guys are still going to be pushing that movement forward.
Yes.
I understand that she did settle Ada Guzman.
$75,000 is not enough money. It's not even about the money, it's about justice. Me personally, had I been Ada Guzman, $75,000 is not enough money to justify what he did. And he's done before, because it's not his first time. This is the first time it was caught on tape.
Wow. So I appreciate your activism.
Thank you.
And what's next? What's next for Ana Montenez?
What's next for me is to teach my daughter, who is 8 months old, to speak up for what's right.
Cool, because leadership does start with the youth.
Yes.
And the fact that you're doing that is awesome. Thank you so much. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank my guest, Ana Montenez, and I want to thank you for tuning in. And you have been watching Entre Nosotros on CCPTV, the educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. See you next time.